joined here now live on the outskirts of Cebu, in or around, you're talking about at 9:20 a.m. on the FM dial. Coming in here at about a 35 degrees Celsius. Couple of boys down there on their way to work, which would mean they're going to go out and hustle. Now, how does a little child from a place like this hustle for pesos? Well, I was just pulling out of Robinson's, and at the crossroads there was a 20-something-year-old, and she was filthy, and she was asleep on the curb, and she flipped herself over and jumped up on her feet to continue her hustle. As I turned the corner, and her toddler then, which was a couple of meters around the corner, as I say to you, maybe about a year ago, I seen this before, her toddler, bollock naked, was tied to a fucking lamppost with a piece of rope like a cat or a dog, while she was having a sleep on the curb. Lads, you'd want to have some heart. You'd want to have some ability now to be able to see this kind of thing and go about your day, but that's what I'm going to do anyway. There's not much I can do, is there? I have the front of my thing is filled with pesos, so if they come in front of my bike, I'll give them some pesos, but sure, all I can do really is say thank fuck I'm not living down there. Okie dokie, 10 a.m. on the FM dial. I just got a text there from my man Yoshi, who advises me on all things to do with day trading and stocks and other such things. And he said, there's a ceasefire, short on oil, which I suppose would be the right way to play it, but I immediately went into my news feed and saw it's a 2-week ceasefire. It's a 2-week ceasefire on the condition that the Strait of Hormuz opens. So I asked my AI then about that, and my AI is set to use a hell of a lot of metaphors and analogies when it's talking to me, right? So my AI says to me, it's a bit like you're having a negotiation, but there's a gun on the table. So I'm telling you to open the Strait of Hormuz, and you're saying, yeah, I'll open it all right. But what's the story with the gun? Well, I'm not taking the gun off the table. Well, it kind of puts a dampener on these negotiations, doesn't it, if you're doing everything with a gun to my head? So a temporary ceasefire for 2 weeks. What does that mean for the price of eggs? I was listening to The Other Hand, which would give you a more economic viewpoint on what's happening over in Iran. There's talk of stagflation, and I'm still confused. I get hyperinflation only because you can get a good picture of by reference to the Weimar Republic and Argentina and Venezuela. Basically, when your money becomes so worthless, you push it around in wheelbarrows full of the stuff. Happened in Zimbabwe and Lebanon. Banks close in situations like that. There was a story about a fella in Lebanon who had his son in college in Germany, and he had to pay the fees for his medical school. Otherwise, the 4 years that he had already paid for would be a waste, and the son would be kicked out of medical school. So the banks were closed. The banks wouldn't give him his money. I'm not sure if they were closed. He went to the bank with a gun, and he says, just to be clear here, I'm not holding ye hostage, nor am I robbing this bank. I just want my money so that I can pay for my son's school fees. And he immediately went viral, and the bank was forced to wire the money to whatever German college it was that his son was in. And then after the money was wired, he freely walked out the door and was arrested. And I think later on that very day was released. because the defence was I was never robbing anybody else's money. It was my money in the first place. So that's a funny story for how things can go once you're dealing with this kind of hyperinflation, stagflation thing. The stagflation, I think, is where it happened in 1973, which was the previous oil crisis. The previous oil crisis. It's when you spike interest rates in a situation where oil prices are already sky high, and you're only hiking interest rates to try and deal with the oil prices. You get me? And so what happens is you flood you don't flood the market. Nobody can afford anything, and nor can anybody get a loan from the banks. So that becomes stagflation. I think it might be kind of opposite to hyperinflation. I'll have to ask my AI. But all these words and descriptions of them are purposefully complicated so that the layman can't really understand what the fuck is happening, except stare aghast as the price of eggs and everything else shoots up in their local supermarket. In Malbowl here at the Pig Dive Hostel, opposite the French bakery. I haven't stayed in that hostel now, but I've just stopped and looked at this 40-foot containers. 1, 2, 3, 4 40-foot containers. Maybe that's a fifth one at the top. How much do you reckon it'd cost for those yokes? And then a balcony. That's a handy out hostel right there. I remember I had a dream once to build a hostel, or to open a hostel. I wanted to call it Ridiculous Bastard Hostel. But now I've given up on that dream. Maybe it's time to reignite it. A little bag of chickens there, guys. Anybody wants to... Up he goes. Taking the boat over there from Cebu Island back to Negros. Okie dokie. Jeez, it's hot today. I'm about to head up into the mountains there on the way towards Kambakalan. I didn't go to Dumaguete in the end for reasons I don't think I will explain here. There are two fields, one to my left, one to my right, each containing, I don't know, would you say hundreds? Not thousands, hundreds of solar panels. And I'm thinking I might wait until nightfall, hop that fence and steal a few of them. Would that be a good idea, seeing as how we're on the cusp of an energy crisis? Meanwhile, I'm just listening to the BBC News. The woman who supplied Matthew Perry with his ketamine has been convicted and sentenced to 15 years in jail. Her attorney said that the sentence was utterly ridiculous. However, other people are saying it's a hallmark of modern justice. Your one admitted that she was selling small amounts of drugs to the rich and wealthy around Los Angeles at the time of Matthew Perry's death. For more information, read his book. It's an amazing read. The fellow was addicted to ketamine. If it wasn't your one who sold it to him, he would have bought it somewhere. Do you know what I mean? Reduce speed. Please stop snorting speed while driving. Boom. It's a few days later now. I'm back in Bacolod. This is Mambucal, which is 30 minutes outside, maybe 45 minutes outside of Bacolod City, on the way to Murcia, slightly off route. Nice little lake in the middle of the park. This is a sanctuary, a reserve of some sort. There's hot baths up there that I usually avail of, and a whole heap of bats that live in those trees. So it makes for a nice natural experience. I finished off my trip after a stop off in Malbao. I stopped off in Malbao, and it was just packed with backpackers, 20-something-year-olds drinking to beat the band. I checked into a hostel where I often stay, and they were playing drinking games from 6 o'clock onwards, and it just, Jesus, reminded me of that hostel I stayed in when I was around 20-something, the Clown and Bard in Prague, and all we did was drink. Anyhow, 1 minute and 22 seconds. I have been narrating a little bit on what is happening in the world, particularly with the Iran conflict. Around 24 hours ago, JD Vance sat down with his Iranian counterparts in Pakistan for peace talks organised by the Pakistanis. And there was a delegate of 70 odd Iranian ministers, IRGC representatives, quite a large school, and JD Vance, Jared Kushner, Steve Witkoff, representing America like a game of football. There's a glare out of the sun. Anyway, 21 hours of talks. Apparently they were in opposite rooms texting each other, whatever that means. And I woke up restoring to the news. No deal. We're pulling out. They're miles apart on what they're saying, what they want, and almost in conjunction with when the peace talks came to an end, what would you call it? A crusade, and a crusade of American vessels, Navy vessels, cruised through the Strait of Hormuz. It's said 2 had made the journey altogether, but the clips that we see on the screens is something like out of a movie. They couldn't quite get away with the theme, you know. And then the headline: Trump clears the way for all oil vessels. When the fact of the matter is, there we go, that's the name of it there, Mambukal. The fact of the matter is, insurance on any of those vessels has increased from what would have been a yearly insurance rate is now the equivalent to 1 week, or a 1 week insurance is the equivalent to 1 year. So it's 52 times more expensive for those oil rigs. So even if the oil does get through on this round, those vessels will not be moving. And so now the news feed is all about the inevitability of supply chain breakdown. How are we going to be able to get the fertilizer, never mind the helium and the nitrate? I'm not sure what the fuck we need helium for. What? Blow up a few balloons? Probably we need the helium to be able to make the 4 minutes and 36 seconds, to be able to make the fertilizer. So the fertilizer is the end product. Meanwhile, back in Ireland, the farmers are up for protest. They've closed down O'Connell Street and various ports, and a third of all fuel pumps around the country have ran out of fuel because these protesters have blocked entrance at the ports, so the fuel isn't even getting off the boat. The world is fucked, the world is fucked. And meanwhile, all is well here in Mambukal. I'm going to go up here and possibly have a little dip in the springs but there's a shit ton of people knocking about the place, so I might just do a U-turn and go back down and get myself some din-dins, and then back down out of the mountains for my class, which is starting in an hour. Here's the Filipino equivalent to the Irish protest. The boys up on top of us. Hey! See, you wouldn't see them out in the middle of the road, would you? And I don't think I saw one Filipino flag amongst them. Anyway. That's the crack down in Balamori. How are you, buddy? We're joined here live in the field. 2 cows, a couple of skateboarders. What? No, I'm too fat to skate. How long have you been skating?
1 year.
Wow. Be careful.
Where are you from?
I'm from planet Earth. And they were whistling at me there earlier on as I was out running. They have a couple of different derogators there. That's the main one. Yeah. Joe's my name. Hey Joe. It's hilarious. I don't even know who Joe is, but they see a foreigner, they go, "Hello, Joe," and then everybody will laugh. I suppose, like, is it the equivalent to somebody who's slightly racist in a country where I'm used to? If they were to whistle across the road and go, "Hey, nigga," and then everybody starts laughing. No, it's not the same thing, Connor. They're not calling you that. They don't mean it like that. Okay, but I just get called Joe everywhere I go, or even worse, Daddy. They say, "Hey, Daddy," because I'm supposed to be a sugar daddy, I guess. Never mind the fact that I'm mostly only here because I am a daddy. Anyway. Hello there!
Hi.
Are you doing the practice?
Yes.
Okay, I'll make a video. Welcome to the Philippines. What barangay is this from?
Barangay Sumag.
Sumag? Yes.
Sir, shout out.
Hello, hello.
Shout out there.
When's the competition? When's the competition?
Wednesday.
Oh.
Afternoon.
Okay, good afternoon. So this is Sumag street performance.